The opening weekend of college football, week 1, is the biggest time of the year. Starting out the college football season, teams are eager to be on the field, fans are ready, and this presents unique matchups you don't really see during the season. There is a few occasions that some conference play will be on the first week that will be very exciting and add more importance to their first game of the year. Throughout college football history, there's been a bunch of forgotten week 1 college football games that nobody knew that two certain teams played each other. Week 1 in 2006, 6th ranked USC went up against Arkansas at Arkansas, and the year prior, it was a 70-14 victory. USC spanked Arkansas. In 2006, it was no better. USC was heavily favored to beat Arkansas. It was basically Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush left to go to the NFL, while John David Booty took over with a serious, dangerous defense with Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing, and Ray Maluga. Arkansas kept it close versus USC in the first half. Then the second half, it just went out of hand really quickly, and Arkansas basically got put to bed early in the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, they piled it on in the fourth quarter, so it'd be so far out of reach, it will be over. At the end of the game, USC almost had 500 total yards, and Arkansas had 5 turnovers. Arkansas really didn't ever stand a chance, except for the little chance they had Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and Peyton Hillis. But that defense, the legendary defense of USC, shut them down. The 2009 matchup of Oklahoma State versus Georgia was the complete opposite of Georgia versus Oklahoma State in 2006. Georgia had no Sean Marino, no Matthew Stafford, but they did have AJ Green, but AJ Green got shut down by Oklahoma State. Even though the game was mighty close, it looked like it was close. Basically, Oklahoma State dominated the game. They had total control of the game. Dez Bryant, even though he had 3 catches, he had 77 yards and 2 touchdowns thrown by Zach Robinson, while AJ Green had 4 catches and 52 yards, average of 13 yards per catch. Joe Cox was not any better. He had 15 out of 30 pass attempts completed, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and Georgia had 3 turnovers for the game. In 2010, the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic between 21st ranked LSU Tigers versus 18th ranked North Carolina was actually a pretty good game in the second half. And the kickoff classics in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when they first started off, this is when they had pretty decent matchups between two different teams from two different conferences playing for a kickoff classic. In the second quarter, LSU took over the game and made it 30-10 into halftime. But in the second half, North Carolina started to creep up in the fourth quarter, and they get the ball back in their last possession, making it all the way to the red zone. That was actually a good comeback from North Carolina. LSU let off the gas, and North Carolina did not give up. It was a great game, a one to remember, but it has sadly been forgotten because LSU basically dominated the first half of the game. In the late 2000s into the early 2010s, Boise State was known as a giant killer. Oklahoma in 2006 Fiesta Bowl, 2009 versus Oregon, 2010 Virginia Tech, 2011 Georgia. Well, in 2012, basically that came to a screeching halt because they faced Michigan State and they were replacing Kirk Cousins, but they had Le'Veon Bell. He rushed for 44 rushes and over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, basically doing everything for Michigan State, even when they had costly penalties of throwing interceptions, big turnovers, and they still won the game. Basically, Le'Veon Bell was a one-man crew to end the giant killer's reign of Boise State. In 2015, it was Louisville that takes on Auburn in the Chick-fil-A kickoff. In the first half, Auburn looked like it was in full control with a 17-0 halftime lead, while Jeremy Johnson Heisman hopeful in the beginning of the year, threw 2 interceptions in the first half, and Lamar Jackson threw an interception on his first play. Basically, the first play of the game. But in the second half, Lamar Jackson actually turned up the heat in the second half and made it into a one-possession game with less than 2 minutes to go. But Auburn closed it out. It was basically a very ugly game, top to bottom, even though the score makes it look like it was a pretty good game. In 2017, Maryland came into Texas, and let me say, it's basically pretty shocking that Maryland beat Texas. Basically, Maryland took over the game and dominated Texas. They barely dominated in the first half, making it 30-10 going into halftime. Even though Texas came back and made it into a game, Maryland actually, every time Texas got close, they just answer it with their own touchdown. Actually, Texas never could catch up and actually had a chance of winning. Basically, Maryland dominated this game. And the most shocking about this game, they went into Texas and beat Texas. This was actually a really good game in the second half, very memorable. But the next year, Texas played Maryland, and they repeated history again, like last year in 2017. In 2018, Maryland beat Texas again. In 2017, Texas A&M versus UCLA will go down in history as one of the biggest comebacks, from a 35 comeback behind victory by Josh Rosen and the UCLA Bruins. Basically, it was not even close in the first half because it was 38-10. In the second half, it was 44-10. In the third quarter, all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, it was all UCLA, and Texas A&M had not answered a score in the fourth quarter, leaving 35 unanswered points in one of the biggest comeback games in history, basically costing Kevin Sumlin his job, basically a nail in his coffin. In the beginning of the year, that led to a disappointing season. All of these forgotten games in this video has something special in each game, and I hope I brought back a little bit of memories to you, because these games shouldn't have been forgotten. In some way, in their own capacity, they left a memory in somebody's heart, in their head. This is why we love college football, especially in week 1. Anything can happen.
He just dumps it off for a first down. Rosen fakes the spike. And an end zone touchdown! Whoa!